Each year, millions of dollars in unclaimed inheritances remain locked away, untouched, unclaimed, and unnoticed. What's most remarkable is that the rightful heirs are often out there, going about their lives, working long hours, completely unaware that their financial future could be transformed by a fortune they don't even know exists. This is the story of Lena. Brooklyn wasn't the kind of place that handed out miracles, at least not to people like Lana Quinn, and at 28, she was on her 5th cup of burnt diner coffee, standing behind the counter of Lou's 24-hour grill, flipping through a menu she already knew by heart. Her apron smelled like old bacon grease, her feet screamed in shoes she couldn't afford to replace, and her phone buzzed with another low balance alert from her bank. Less than $18, that's all she had. Not enough for groceries, barely enough for a taxi home, definitely not enough for the rent she owed in 2 days. Her apartment, if you could even call it that, was a crumbling studio on the 3rd floor of a building with more roaches than tenants. Lana never knew luxury, she never even knew family. She had grown up in foster care, bounced from home to home like a forgotten package with no return address, no baby pictures, no bedtime stories, no real roots, just her, surviving, and she was damn tired of it. Her days were a never-ending loop of greasy plates and fake smiles, and when she wasn't pouring coffee or memorizing the faces of regulars, she was hustling, dog-walking for tech bros, selling scented candles on Etsy that never seemed to sell, and taking the weirdest Craigslist jobs just to scrape by. Last week, she dressed up as a dancing pickle at a kid's birthday party in Prospect Park. The week before that, she stood in a freezing parking lot wearing a giant foam finger and waving at cars for $15 an hour. But tonight was a different kind of low. A stranger from Craigslist had offered her $500 to be his +1 at a fancy charity gala in Manhattan, and the only requirement is to pretend to be his girlfriend, smile, be charming, dress nice, and don't ask questions. Desperate and broke, Lana said yes. She borrowed a dress from a friend of a friend. It was a little too tight, but still managed to look like money. Her heels were 2 sizes too small, bought from a second-hand store with a no-return policy. She did her own makeup using a cracked mirror and drugstore mascara that barely clung to her lashes. When she walked into that ballroom at the Park Avenue Crystal Club, it was like she had entered a different universe. Glass chandeliers, white-gloved waiters, a string quartet, people sipped champagne that probably cost more than her entire wardrobe, and her so-called boyfriend for the night, Derek, was slick, rehearsed, and clearly used to this world as he whispered in her ear, "Just laugh when I laugh, nod when I nod, and pretend you're obsessed with me, you'll be fine." Lana smiled through clenched teeth, her cheeks aching from fake laughter. She shook hands with people she would never meet again, complimented a woman's earrings that looked like they could pay her rent for 6 months, and ate exactly 3 mini crab cakes before realizing she might be allergic. She played her role flawlessly, but as the night dragged on, so did the weight of the lie. She didn't belong here, not even close. And when the gala finally ended, Derek handed her an envelope stuffed with cash and said, "You're good at this. If you ever want to do it again." She took the money, gave a forced smile, and walked straight out the front doors into the freezing Manhattan air. She pulled off her heels and walked barefoot to the subway, holding them like trophies from a war she didn't win. By the time she got home, her feet were bleeding and her soul felt even worse. She sat on her sagging mattress, staring at the envelope on her lap, $500, which is enough to buy her a few more days of breathing room. But she felt like she would sold a part of herself for it. Lana didn't know it yet, but that one wild decision, to pretend to be someone else for a paycheck, was the start of something unbelievable, because someone at that gala had seen her, and that someone had been looking for her for a very, very long time, and soon, her entire life would flip upside down. 2 weeks had passed since the gala gig. Lana was back in her element, if you could call it that, the clatter of forks on plates, the endless hiss of the coffee machine, and the hum of neon lights buzzing like a mosquito in her ear. Same greasy apron, same aching feet, same $5 tip from a table of 4 who thought they were doing her a favor. Nothing had changed. She wiped down counter number 3, making a humming sound to keep her brain from melting. Bills were piling up again. The $500 was long gone, split between rent, groceries, and patching up her phone screen after she dropped it on the subway stairs. It was a Tuesday, quiet, cold, and then, he walked in. The bell above the diner door jingled, and Lana looked up out of habit. He didn't belong here. He is tall, clean-shaven, gray streak in his hair, black Armani suit, the kind that didn't wrinkle, polished shoes, leather briefcase that looked like it hadn't touched the ground since 1998. He walked like he had purpose, but when he reached the counter, all he said was, "Black coffee, no cream, no sugar." Lana poured it without a word, set the cup in front of him. He didn't touch it. Instead, he just stared at her, not in a creepy way, but in a calculated way, like he was memorizing her face, matching it to something he already knew. And finally, he spoke. "I've been looking for you for a long time, Miss Lana Quinn." Lana raised a brow, half amused, half annoyed, but then he added, calmly, "Or should I say, Lana DeGraves?" She laughed, loud and sharp. "Okay, now you're just making up names. What is this? Some long-lost princess story?" He didn't flinch, didn't smile. Instead, he reached into his briefcase and slid a photograph across the counter. It was old, faded, curled at the edges, a picture of a baby, her own baby picture, with a tiny swirl of black hair and those same sharp, tired eyes, and in the photo, holding her close, was a woman she didn't recognize, elegant, sad eyes, a silk scarf wrapped around her neck. "I'm a private investigator," the man said. "Name's Vincent Ray. I work for the estate of Henry DeGraves. He passed away 6 months ago." She blinked and said, "Okay, and?" Vincent leaned in slightly. "Mr. DeGraves left behind an inheritance, $14.7 million, and after months of searching all the breadcrumbs, all the records, they led to you." Lana stared at him and then, without thinking, she grabbed the hot cup of black coffee and threw it in his face. "Get out of my diner," she snapped. "You think this is funny, right? I've been broke my whole life. Don't come in here with your lies and your fancy suit and think I'll fall for it." Vincent calmly pulled a napkin from the dispenser and dabbed at the coffee on his body like this wasn't the first time someone reacted like this. He stood, dropped a crisp business card on the counter, and said, "You have 72 hours to claim it, Miss DeGraves. After that, the entire estate defaults to the state." He turned to leave, paused at the door, and looked over his shoulder. "Good luck, Lana, whether you believe me or not. Your life just changed," and then he was gone. Lana stood frozen behind the counter, hand trembling, heart racing. She looked down at the business card. Vincent Ray, private investigator, DeGraves Estate Affairs. Her head was spinning. She didn't believe him. She couldn't believe him. But somehow, deep down, she knew that baby photo he gave her wasn't fake. Lana didn't sleep that night. She lay in her shoebox apartment, staring at the ceiling, the business card clutched in her hand like a lifeline she didn't trust. Part of her wanted to forget it all, chalk it up to a scam and move on, but the picture, that baby was her. She knew it, and something about the way Vincent spoke, so calm, so sure, it stuck in her chest like a splinter. By sunrise, she gave in. She Googled him, Vincent Ray, private investigator, DeGraves Estate Affairs. He was real, like, too real. Articles, testimonials, even a LinkedIn profile with a headshot that made him look like he moonlighted in spy films. No red flags, no scams, just legitimacy. With her heart in her throat, Lana called out of work and hopped the subway uptown. The address on the card brought her to a sleek glass building that looked like it housed hedge funds and heartless lawyers. Marble floors, gold elevator buttons, security guards who looked like they were ex-military. She asked for Vincent. They knew his name and they let her up. When he met her in the hallway, he didn't even flinch, just offered her water and slid a file across the polished table. Inside, the will of Henry DeGraves, maps, DNA reports, photos, and one final page, a requirement. To unlock the inheritance, Lana had to provide a DNA match to a locket retrieved from a safety deposit box in Kansas City. The locket had belonged to her birth mother and had been kept sealed for over 2 decades. Vincent tapped the deadline with his pen. 48 hours left. That was it. She was on the clock. With 0 time and even less money, Lana made a choice. She pawned the only thing she owned of value, her grandmother's old necklace, the one piece of family she had, just enough for a Greyhound ticket. No sleep, no suitcase, just a hoodie, backpack, and pure adrenaline. The ride was brutal, 15 hours of crying babies in the bus, greasy snacks, and seatmates with questionable hygiene. At a midnight pit stop in Ohio, she got mugged, lost her ID, $20, and a pack of gum. By 4 a.m., she was locked in a grimy bathroom stall at a bus station, crying into her sleeves. She almost turned back, almost, but she didn't. By the time she reached Kansas City, she was running on fumes and vending machine coffee. The bank was one of those old-world institutions, vaults and mahogany desks. The manager is an uptight man with wire-framed glasses, told her flatly. Without court documentation or a notarized letter from the executor, I cannot legally release the contents. She snapped, tears welled up, years of exhaustion crashing in all at once. She told him everything. About growing up in foster care, about not knowing her parents, about how this might be her only chance to feel like she belonged somewhere. She didn't even realize she was crying until her knees gave out. Something in the banker shifted. Maybe it was pity, maybe he had a daughter, maybe he just saw how real it all was. He nodded once, disappeared for 10 minutes, and returned with a black velvet box. The locket was small, silver, worn with time, and inside it is a single lock of chestnut hair, and a tiny folded note. For Lana, always find your way back, from Mom. Her hands shook as she read it. There were no answers, no grand explanations, but it was the first time in her life she had something real from someone who once loved her. She took the locket and headed straight to the clinic Vincent had arranged, a swab, a vial, and a lab technician who barely looked up. 24 hours later, 99.99% match. Henry DeGraves had a secret daughter, and that daughter was standing in a Kansas motel room, staring at her phone in disbelief, holding a note from a mother she never knew. She wasn't really Lana Quinn, her real name is Lana DeGraves, and her life just officially flipped upside down. The bus ride back to New York felt like waking up from a dream Lana never meant to fall into. She stared out the window the entire trip, watching America blur by. Dusty roads, fast food signs, people walking dogs in small towns she might never see again. She clutched the locket in her hoodie pocket like it was a secret only she was allowed to know. The DNA test was real, the inheritance was real. She, a broke, burnt-out waitress from Brooklyn, was now worth $14.7 million. The number didn't even make sense in her head. She didn't tell anyone, not yet. She just wanted to see it through, say goodbye to the old life. One last loop around the block before the credits rolled, and back in Brooklyn, everything was exactly as she left it. Loud, grimy, familiar. The diner smelled like burnt toast and fried eggs, same cracked booths, same flickering fluorescent lights. Same boss yelling orders like he was Gordon Ramsay on a budget. Lana pushed open the diner door wearing the same apron she'd worn for the last 6 years. Her shoes still squeaked on the greasy tile. Her name tag still hung crooked on her chest. Quinn. Her manager barked from behind the griddle. You're 30 minutes late and you left mid-shift last week without calling. One more stunt like that, and you are. She walked past him without letting him land, cool as ever, and poured herself a cup of coffee. Then she leaned on the counter like she had every day for the past half-decade, but this time with a smile that said she knew something the rest of the world didn't. She took a slow sip and set the mug down gently and she said, I just found out I'm a millionaire. Can I get this one to go? For the first time in 6 years, her boss was speechless. Lana turned, dropped her apron on the counter, and walked out of the diner with the kind of peace people chase for a lifetime. And then, she got to work. Not on spending, but on giving back. She didn't keep all the money, not even close. Instead, Lana set up the Always Find Your Way Foundation, named after the note in the locket, and its mission is to help kids aging out of the foster care system navigate adulthood, housing, jobs, therapy, community, because she knew what it was like to turn 18 and have the world slam the door in your face. She knew what it meant to sleep on a couch, to go to interviews hungry, to cry in public bathrooms, and now, she had the power to do something about it. Of course, she did make personal purchases and life-changing moves on herself. She bought the building her crappy apartment was in, paid cash, and on the first of the month, she walked up to her landlord's door, the man who ignored every of her maintenance call, who raised the rent without reason, who once tried to evict her over $47. She smiled, handed him a letter, and said, You've got 30 days to find a new place. I own this building now. He stammered. She didn't wait for a response, and as she turned to leave, she looked over her shoulder. Funny how life works, she said. One day you're faking it at a rich people's party. The next, you own the building they threw it in. She walked down the steps, the city alive around her. She spent her whole life chasing survival, until fate handed her a fortune, and she turned it into something far greater than money, a second chance for everyone who never got one.